Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our next session, From Anxiety to Agency, Improving Employee Readiness in the Age of AI. This webcast has been pre-approved for both point 0.5 HRCI and SHRM credit. Just a friendly reminder that you must attend the complete webcast in order to receive these credits. So keep an eye out in your inbox for an email from hr.com within 24 hours that will include your certification information. So we have the chat open for engagement here in this 30-minute session. And we also have the Q&A box. If you have questions for the presenters, you can pop those in the Q&A box as well. All right, it is now my absolute pleasure to turn it over to Charles Epstein to get us started.
Excellent. Thank you, Rhonda. And thanks for everybody joining us here today for this session. I'm Charles Epstein, and I am the founder and managing director of AIX, which sits at the intersection of AI and readiness at the organizational leadership and employee levels. A quick background, we developed AIX in association with HR.com. It consists of essentially three components: an AIX on HR.com community, the X Factor podcast, and the wildly successful X Files Substack. If you're not a member or subscriber, I strongly urge you to rectify that omission immediately, but actually wait for about 30 minutes until this is over. Then you could do that. It's free to members and prohibitively expensive to non-members. It's actually a line from With Nell and I, favorite movie of mine. Any case, so in these sessions, we'll be exploring, this is our first AI for HR.com session. In these sessions, we'll be exploring the many forms, definitions of, and paths to AI readiness, the organizational leadership at the organizational leadership and employee levels. And today, for our maiden AI for HR session, I am delighted to be joined by Michelle Strasburger, the founder and CEO of HR Rebooted. Michelle, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Charles. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, joining us from frosty New Hampshire. Michelle appeared several weeks back on the X Factor to discuss the connection between AI governance and readiness, and I thought she'd be the perfect person to join us on this first session we're doing for AI for HR.com. Michelle, perhaps to begin, if you give just a brief background on you and HR Rebooted, and then we'll get to the presentation portion of this.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I have been an HR practitioner for over 25 years and realized there was a need for AI governance. And so we started HR Rebooted to empower organizations for the AI revolution. And we do that through our Governance First platform, which is a SaaS solution for developing AI strategy, policy, training, and enablement within organizations to help you manage risk, demonstrate AI governance, and use AI responsibly. What we're really doing is helping HR professionals to lead confidently in this changing world.
Excellent. So,
and as
yes,
Charles said,
Michelle.
I'm in the North Country in New Hampshire, and what happens when it's cold is we all get sick. And so I've been kind of working through this cold for the last couple of weeks. So I'm sorry if I sound a little under the weather. I'm fine. I'm just got a little bit in my throat here, so we'll work through it.
Excellent. So I'm going to give the floor over to you, Michelle. I know we have a couple of slides just to sort of set the stage. And as everybody knows who's coming to these sessions, they're supposed to be practical how-tos. So we're going to pivot to that portion. But if you would, Michelle, if you could just sort of set that stage.
Absolutely. So one of the things we're facing with AI and AI adoption is really anxiety. And the seat I sit in, I'm running a software organization, but I have the HR experience. I've spent over 25 years in HR, and I understand change management, and I understand the seat that you're sitting in. And Charles and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago around this, and he shared this study with me. And it's called The Impact of AI on the Workplace, and it's from Millen Data Science Strategies and the Work Institute. And I found this very interesting. And so at first glance, you look at this and you talk about anxiety in the workplace, and this is specific to AI, right? the numbers don't look that bad. So you look at them and it's okay, 40% feel uncertain about the future impact, 35% uncertain about long-term prospects, and the numbers kind of drop from there. But when you dig deeper into those numbers, what you have to think about is, what is the data not showing you, right? 40% of people worry that AI could replace aspects of the job, or more pieces of their job. 40%, that's a pretty big number. It's not a staggering number. Like you might expect a larger number, like 50 or 60%. I think what we find behind those numbers is there's other studies showing that adoption is slowing, and we'll get into that a little bit. But it actually is very interesting. As you dive into the numbers, the different generations make up the level of impact, and the level of impact varies based upon the generation. So this chart at the bottom is from that same study, and it shows that the Gen X and baby boomers, right? So we have the 4 different generations in the workplace, have less concern about AI in the workplace and the impact of AI in the workplace than the millennials and Gen Z. And it makes sense on paper, right? Because Gen Z and millennials have a bigger runway, right? They're starting out their career. They might be making career changes. They have to worry about how this is going to impact their job in the future. I have a friend whose son is graduating from high school this year. And at the soccer field this fall, we were talking about what does he think he's going to do? Where is he going to go to school? And she said he's not really sure because he's afraid to invest in college for a role that might go away after he graduates college, right? In 4 years, am I going to go to school for 4 years and that role is not going to be there, or there's not going to be an opportunity for me? And so the younger generation is really thinking about the future impact of AI and the uncertainty around it. And some of the anxiety that we're also seeing in the workplace is there's ethical and security risks, that job security that we talked about, decision-making. So how is the organization, how are my leaders using AI to make decisions? How is it impacting my performance and my performance reviews? Are you using AI to write my performance review, or are you really putting thought behind it? Psychological safety and well-being is also really important. Predictive Index did a study recently, and it showed that organizations that use psychological safety or put psychological safety at the forefront of their AI implementation were much more successful in their implementation of AI. And then transparency. How are we using AI in the organization? What's being done with AI? How are decisions being made and things like that? If you do have any questions too, feel free to put them in the chat and Charles is going to call those up.
Yes. I just want to make a quick little point because you and I are reading the same book, How to AI. I'm about halfway through. It's really kind of fascinating. And one of the points the author makes, which I think goes to the relative anxiety levels per these cohorts. You mentioned that younger cohort have more runway, so they're more anxious about what this all bodes or portends. And baby boomers say less runway and so on and so forth. The author makes a really interesting point that people who have more expertise and experience find that AI is more useful because they are better able to ask more informed, refined questions, so they get better output. So that may also, to some degree, go into a lower level of anxiety for that cohort.
Absolutely. How to use AI, I think, helps alleviate some anxiety, right? And how it's being used in the organization helps alleviate some of that as well. I think also
I'm sorry, I should put the author and name of that book in the chat because it's worthwhile. I'm sorry,
you
Michelle.
have it handy. That's a good one. Is
I
it
don't, but I'll
the
find
coming
it.
wave?
Oh, yes, that too. But I was actually talking about another book that I know you and I talked about how to AI. But again, I digress.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing too is that the technology is moving so fast and there's so much uncertainty about it that we don't have the answers. right? And I think that's fair to say that if employees are coming to us and saying, how are we doing this? What are we thinking about it? We might say from an HR perspective, I don't know. And that's scary, right? And even as a leader, we're not quite sure, right? And I think in today's world with adoption, with AI, it's kind of a little bit of the wild, wild west. We're either tossing it out there and saying, use it and be fruitful, or we're starting to put some policies around it, but it's not that solidified where employees feel very certain about what the future looks like. And I think we don't have the answers, and that's okay. We'll talk about how to get there. The other piece, I found this study with Gallup, and this is really interesting, that adoption is still really low. And what you see here is that it's about 11% of people down here, individual contributors, that are using AI on a daily basis. That's really, really low in organizations. And it gets higher the closer you get to leadership or to the executive level, to the decision making, the more adoption you have with AI, and the further away you get from that, the lower adoption you have. So I think that speaks to the same comment you just mentioned, Charles, is that I think you have more understanding of how to use it. I think you also have more understanding of like, what are the common norms and what's accepted. Like if you don't have a policy in your organization and you don't have training and you're not communicating how to use AI in your organization, your individual contributors are like, I'm not going to touch it. I don't know how it's affecting my job. I don't know how I'm supposed to use it. I don't know what the rules are. And so they're staying away from it. And when you're in leadership, you tend to know what's acceptable or what are the unwritten rules. And so you're much more comfortable playing with it. I think there's also a phenomenon happening where people are using their own devices, like you bring your own device to work. So some of the usage is not being reported.
Right. The whole idea of shadow AI.
Yep. But I have a story I like to share about this piece specifically. There was a playground at a school, and at recess the children would go out to the playground. It was this big, beautiful playground, and there was a climber and a swing set and all of these great things for the kids to play on, but they played really close to the building because they weren't quite sure where they were supposed to play. And then one day the teachers said, you know what, we should really fence in the play yard. And so they put a fence in around the yard, and that put guardrails in for the kids, and it put some perimeters in for the kids. So the next day, once the fence was up, the children went outside to play, and then they played all the way to the fence and took advantage of the whole yard. And I think it's a great analogy for this, because when we don't know what the rules are, we don't step into it, right? We don't try because we're afraid that we're going to get in trouble, right? Or we're afraid that we're going to break the rules without knowing them, right? There is that saying of it's better to ask for forgiveness, but some people don't even want to go there.
Right.
And so you have to put that fence up, and you have to set those policies and guardrails for people so that they know where to play and they know how they can use AI.
Yeah, I think there's another point there when we talk about this very thing, governance and so forth. I usually use the analogy or the line that Robert Frost used in sort of dismissing blank verse as playing tennis without a net. You need that net to impose some structure, and it's that structure where not only do you have actually now rules and the framework for a game, but it inspires greater play, and in poetry, uh, more imagination, more invention.
Right, right. I can't imagine playing tennis without a net. That's a great analogy. What
It's
would be the purpose?
kind of called pickleball, but not quite.
Yeah. So agency, if you want to shift from anxiety to agency, it really begins with governance. And governance is that fence, is setting up the fence and setting up the processes and policy and understanding where people can play in the sandbox and how AI is going to be used. And I was talking with a good friend of mine, Megan, and she was talking about AI usage. And a lot of AI usage today, we're talking about using it individually. And you have to really start with thinking about what is our strategy as an organization. And that's where governance really starts, is what is our strategy as an organization and how are we going to use this to achieve our organization-wide goals and not be an individual tool, right? So take it from individual to organization wide. And I think that's where we're missing some of the steps in adoption and with anxiety and with agency, is that we're just tossing it out there and people are like, I don't know how to use this. I don't know why we're doing this. And yes, it's going to help me, but is it really helping the whole? And how do we use it to not just make myself better, but make the team better, make our cross-functional teams better, make our organization better?
Yeah, to hazard another metaphor, to me, governance is sort of an operating system in which AI, just about everything else runs, without which it can't really run properly.
Yeah, exactly. And governance, I think for some people sounds like a scary thing, right? It sounds very compliance driven. It really is the opportunity to make sure that you're running your AI responsibly. So it's setting up your governance committees, it's understanding how you're using AI in the organization. So building that transparency, it's creating your policies, creating some type of enforcement with those policies, creating your documentation, having a process so that it's a whole change management initiative, so that when an employee comes to you and says, here are my concerns, what's going to happen? And you can say, I don't know, but we have a process in place to deal with that. And here's what we're looking at. And here's how we're doing it. Here's our governance committee for that. And here's what they're looking at. Or here's our process for bringing in AI systems and our filter for vetting AI systems. And so putting those things in place to make sure that you're using it responsibly and mitigating the risks in your organization. And it doesn't have to be that hard. We have a 7-step process that we use in our system today that walks you through each step for AI governance. So this is another reason why you need AI governance. We have even this is showing adoption is still really low, and this is done in Q4. We're seeing 38% of employees are saying that their organization has integrated AI technology in their organization. So we're still seeing a low number. When people talk about using it a lot, we're still seeing a very low number of usage or adoption in organizations, and then still a lower number on governance. And there was an interesting article that came out yesterday. I saw it yesterday, so it might have not come out yesterday, from HR Executive. And HR Executive has a lot of really great information on AI as well. And they talked about Walmart versus Amazon. And Walmart has not always been a people first organization, but they decided, and it was their HR leader that led it, that they decided that they were going to have a people first AI strategy. And it's actually had a very positive impact on their bottom line. And they conversely showed how Amazon did not take that approach, and they're doing layoffs in the organization. So they took a very opposite approach, and they just said, we're going to implement AI and we're going to reduce headcount and the impacts that's having on their organization. They're both showing results, but the long-term sustainability is going to be the people first approach. So it was really interesting. And that people first approach starts with governance. So we talked a little bit about governance and what it is, and so why it's important. One, there's a lot of risks with AI and legal and compliance risks. There are a couple of cases, I'm sure everybody's heard the Workday lawsuit. There was another one I heard yesterday. The company was called Eightfold, I believe, and they have a lawsuit going because they're an applicant tracking system, and they were stack ranking candidates based upon not what was just in their resume, but also what was on the World Wide Web. So anything on social media, anything that was searchable, which we know is a violation, because you have to have background check validation to do that stuff. So there's a lawsuit there. So there are a lot of legal and compliance risks that if you're not doing it appropriately, you're setting yourself up for. And the EEOC has said if there's bias algorithms in the system that you're purchasing, and you're making employment decisions based upon that, you're responsible for those decisions, even if they're biased and you're not biased. The system is biased. So you have to make sure you have some oversight on that. There's reputational and financial risks. If you get sued, it's out there. I had a CEO that used to say, I don't want to make decisions that's going to put my name on the front page of Time magazine. And so a lot of these things, especially with AI, since it's so new, if it gets out there, it will be on the cover of something. And so you want to make sure that you're taking steps to mitigate those risks the best you can. Workforce and cultural risk, we started this off with the employee anxiety. We talked about job displacement. It does have an impact on psychological safety in the workplace. And so how are we ensuring that we are keeping the human in the process? How are we ensuring that we're setting up our organizations using both human and AI resources for the future? How are we upskilling and reskilling people? That article from Walmart talked about that they're really focusing on upskilling and reskilling people and not eliminating roles, right? How do we prepare ourselves to shift for the future? And operational and security risks. So all of these are really important, and they really set the stage for why governance is important. And HR is really at the center of this. And this is why AI is the orchestra, and it's moving very fast, and it needs a conductor. And HR is the perfect conductor for it to pull all the pieces together. And that's what we do in HR, right? We bring people together. We bring different departments together. We bring people to the table. We have the people-centric expertise. We have the responsible use and risk management experience, and we have the ability to build strategic business partnerships across the organization to manage a change management experience. And that's what this is. And that's why HR needs to be the conductor in this orchestra and pull all these instruments together. And I said this one day on a call, and somebody said, these instruments may not be used that much. They might not be, the people using the instruments might not be trained, right? So HR has to do the training as well, and that's part of governance. Does that resonate with folks on the call?
We just got somebody in chat say totally. I'm assuming
Totally.
that's Elise Novak. Hopefully it's okay that I revealed your name. And I'm assuming that Elise speaks for a good amount of you, but I don't want to draw too much from that.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't mean that there's the other departments are not involved, right? It's important that we link arms with other departments, IT, legal, even marketing is going to use AI a lot, customer support, bring all those leaders to the table. The CEO has to be on board, has to be the executive sponsor, because if they're not, it's not going to go anywhere. But HR really needs to be that conductor to bring everybody together, and get everybody on the same page to start to build the governance. So here are 12 ways to guide AI agency. Define a clear and driven strategy. We talked about that at the beginning. What's our strategy? How are we going to do this? It's not an individual tool. It's organizational wide strategy. Don't boil the ocean. Start small and build from there. Continuously educate and upskill. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and she said, I think the challenge with adoption, she heard somebody say, was that, you know what, it's moving so fast, we're never going to learn it, so why bother? And she said to me, but haven't you ever got a new phone or an update to your phone? It's something new all the time, right? The more if we continuously update and continuously educate and upskill, it's not learning everything all over again. It's incremental learning. And if you could put the learning where people are working and as part of their workflow, you'll meet them where they're at, and it's not a dreaded process. Assess your current state and your AI readiness. We have a tool for that, which I'll show on the next slide, that you can do that. Develop, iterate, and communicate policies. If you're going to start anywhere, that's a great place to start. Build your orchestra with the people that need to help build that policy, and and go from there. Move from experimentation to leadership. So start using it and then start showing the leadership. And this is where you need the CEO and the executive leadership team on board to show that they're behind this, that how they're using it, that they're being transparent, and that they're supporting the initiative. Communicate regularly and transparently. We talked about the concerns and the anxiety, and the uncertainty, right? We don't yet know what the future holds. We know it's going to be different than what today is. The more you communicate, the more you can put those concerns at rest. If you don't communicate, if you don't tell a story, they're going to make up their own story, and it's usually not the story you want them to have. And so even if it's, I don't know, but here's what we're doing to address it, it's better than nothing. So continuously communicate and communicate transparently. Partner for AI governance and risk management, build your governance committees, champion human-centered AI. How do we make this humans first? How do we make sure we have human oversight? How do we make sure that humans are in the loop? Prepare for the future of work. How do we upskill, reskill people? Promote ethical AI and bias mitigation. And then guide change management and culture and adoption, making sure that this is all part of your values. This is not a one size fits all, that you can't take what Microsoft did to implement AI or Walmart did to implement AI at your organization. It has to be specific to your organization, and it has to be your strategy built around your values and your culture to drive adoption. And so I promised we did have an assessment for you to take. So if you scan this QR code, we have a leadership readiness assessment on our website that you can take. And this tells you how ready you are as leaders. And you can share this with other leaders in your organization based upon 6 key dimensions, excuse me, that will see if you're ready and where the gaps are in your organization. That is what we have. I would invite you to connect with me and Charles. We are on LinkedIn. And you can also follow us at hrrebooted.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I think we have a couple of minutes before I have to turn it over to Rhonda.
I tell you, Michelle, that was very impressive that you pulled this together within 30 minutes. Didn't think it could be done. And great stuff. And there's
They
a
take a
reason I
challenge.
asked you to be the first person to join me on this. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Let me see if there's anything here in the chat.
Thank you, Rachel.
There's a comment further up in the chat from Francisco that says, loves a reference to human-centered solutions. That's where HR brings value to the org.
Yes, yes. And I did have somebody ask me if I think HR is going to go away with AI. And I will tell you it is not. And I think that's the comment, Francisco, and that's the reason. I think our jobs in HR are going to evolve. And I think this is going to be the key. This HR being the conductor and the orchestra is going to be your opportunity to take that strategic seat in the organization. And that's where your job is going to shift in the future is how do I build a strategic organization and a workforce of the future that's ready for the future using both human and AI resources and keeping the human in the loop, right? And I was excited to see Walmart do that because I think they're setting the stage. And other companies, there's another company to say in Japan that did the same thing. Great. Well, I
Yeah,
will turn it back.
if I may, just want to close a little bit of a promotional plug for AIX. I said at the beginning, it's free. We have some really good content. And please, does anybody you're interested in having us interview on the podcast, let me know and we will get those people on. We're getting a lot of really good people. There's some good buzz out there. So let us know if there's somebody you really want to hear. Um, let us know. And please join AIX. Every Tuesday, the podcast drops. Every Friday, the X Files drops. So, and
Fantastic. Thank you so
And
much to both you, Charles and Michelle. And I will echo Charles. This was phenomenal bringing this all together in a half an hour. Very, very valuable. So thank you so much, Michelle. To all of you for joining us, we thank you. This has been recorded just now. It will be archived on hr.com if you would like to view it again at any time. Also, note that when I close the session, an exit survey is going to pop open on your computer. So before you head to the next session, if you could just take a moment to fill that out, your feedback is very important to us. The HRCI Insurance Credit, they will be in your hr.com account within 24 hours and we'll also send you an email with your credit information. Again, thanks so much, Charles and Michelle, and take great care, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.